Book review on video. This time, Muhajababes by Allegra Stratton. Very recent read, in fact I finished it like 2 hours ago. So it's still very fresh in my mind. I got this book through book crossing from the wonderful Away with Fairies from Australia. She visited Oslo in, July was it? And I got to hang out with her for a couple of days, and she brought some books to release, among others this one, and I picked it up from our book crossing meetup. Because I've heard about it before, I've read about it I think, and I was interested in reading it. Unfortunately, I have to say that it was, while interesting enough to have been worthwhile, it was overall a disappointing read for me, unfortunately. That may be just as much or even more to do with my personal expectations of the book than with any of the actual shortcomings of the book itself, but whatever the reason, I was disappointed. The book isn't that well written. The writer is a professional journalist, so I had perhaps expected a bit more on that score, but I thought it wasn't well written. But worse, it was not well edited, as there are a number of typos. There are several instances of word overflow, where basically you have a sentence with maybe the same preposition cropping up twice, where if either of them were removed, doesn't matter which one, the sentence would have worked either way. But it looks like now some editor just forgot to remove whichever one of those prepositions that they had decided not to use. So it's not that well written, and it's sloppily edited, so obviously those are not good things. But if that had been all, it would have been such a big deal. But this book is basically the story of Stratton's travels in the Middle East, where she's talking to young people and trying to... I'm actually not sure what she's trying to do, I guess, discover Arab youth culture. And she visits several countries. She visits Lebanon, she visits Egypt, she goes to Kuwait, to Syria, Dubai, and she meets different people and talks to them about not a wide enough variety of issues for my taste, but various things that are of interest to her and that she assumes are of interest to them as well. And she's sometimes wrong. The title, Muhajababes, is given to her by one of the people she meets, I think, in Beirut. Muhajaba means a young woman who wears the hijab, whereas the Muhajababe is a woman who does wear the hijab, but is basically, this is not a quote, this is coming from me, basically a hypocrite, because the hijab is about showing your modesty. And a Muhajababe, she wears the hijab, but she also wears makeup. She wears tight clothes. She may show cleavage, and obviously that's not very modest. I see a lot of those girls here in Oslo, and I really sometimes want to stop them and ask, why the hell are you wearing that stupid thing? You're not trying to show your modesty. I can see your tits falling out of your top, and your jeans look painted on. So, what's with that towel on your head? Sorry, no offense to anyone, but the existence of the Muhajababe is, to me, inherently hypocritical. She talks about the hijab. That's one of the red threads. The veil, as she calls it, which is ridiculous. It's patently not a veil. It's something that she sees in varying degrees in the various countries she visits, and she talks to young women about them, and she hears a lot of reasons why people decide to veil or not to veil. Damn it, she made me say it too. Decides to cover themselves up or not cover themselves up, is what I mean. She also talks a little bit about politics, and perhaps the one thing that content-wise I didn't like the most was she's really into music. So it seems. She's talking about music and constantly trying to track down musicians and visiting concerts and record execs and things like that, and she never seems to get anywhere with that. It's like one guy she tries to meet used to be a rapper, and tried to make rap out to be some kind of Islamic thing. Which seemed interesting. But when she finally tracked him down and got to meet him, he'd given up rap and was basically doing regular pop music. And other scenarios too, where she is sort of following these pop music or rock music or trends in order to understand the youth culture. She doesn't get anywhere, yet she keeps obsessing over this music thing. So it was like she was following a lead that never led anywhere, but she would never give it up. It's like, I'm sure you all know the expression, kill your darlings. It's like this was her darling, and she refused to kill it, and just kept following dead leads, as I saw it. And on the contrary, she should, in my opinion, have talked much more to young people involved in politics, which she does in Dubai, I think it was. She went to the university and talked to people involved in student politics, which was much, much more interesting than all these record companies and talking to musicians who were, let's face it, as empty-headed as most pop musicians are in the West. So I felt like this book could have been good. It could have been good. But the writing lets it down, and she doesn't follow things through the way she should. This seems like a collection of loose threads that, in the hands of a more experienced writer, could have become a really good book. But unfortunately, in this debuting writer's hands, it's not that good. It's interesting, and I'm glad I read it. I did get some new insight, but overall, I have to characterize it as a failed attempt, unfortunately. But still worth reading for a bit of insight. It's a quick read, only about 280 pages. Doesn't take long to read, so I'd recommend it if you're interested in the subject matter, but I also recommend that you keep your expectations relatively low. Muhajababes, Allegra Stratton.